I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
This episode is brought to you by TaxAct. Don't do your taxes alone. Join TaxAct's National Admin Night. Admin nights are social gatherings for getting through your to-do list. So get ready for a night of fun, finding deductions, and filing taxes with TaxAct, where you can file your federal and state return for just $49 through April 8. Let's get together and get them over with. Visit taxact.com/admin-night for details.
Our presence has changed the world so much. Like, as a species, our ability to invent things and change landscapes and leave our mark everywhere we go and many places we don't go has transformed the entire planet.
That is Cara Giaimo. She is today's guest and co-author of the new Atlas Obscura book, Wildlife, an explorer's guide to the world's living wonders. I'm looking at the book right now. It's packed with over 500 plants, animals, and more. The book takes you, quote, on an epic journey around the globe, from frozen Antarctic deserts to lush jungles, from high mountain peaks to deep ocean trenches, and even into the heart of our densest cities, end quote. And this is what we're diving into today. You're going to get a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes, first of all, just to create a book like this, what goes into it, and how the creation of this and just diving deep into the natural world really changed some of Cara's perspectives and the way she approaches even her daily life. We explore some of the unique relationships between cultures and creatures. You're going to get plenty of ideas for places to go to witness some of this unique wildlife in person, and so much more. It's all happening in this episode right now. So buckle up, strap in. Thanks for being here, and welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend.
You're listening to the Zero to Travel podcast, where we explore exciting travel-based work, lifestyle, and business opportunities, helping you to achieve your wildest travel dreams. And now your host, world wanderer and travel junkie, Jason Moore.
Hey, it's Jason here with ZeroToTravel.com. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging out, letting me bring a little travel into your ears today. This is the show to help you travel the world on your terms, to fill your life with as much travel as you desire, no matter what your situation or experience. This was a fun one. I was excited to discover, among other things, some of the unexpected urban wildlife experiences you can have, perhaps right in your own backyard if you live in an urban area. That's one of many topics we cover on the new book, Wildlife, and it's always so cool to chat with an author. Cara has a unique background as a science writer, and you can hear her curiosity come through in this conversation. It's really infectious. And, when you dive deep on the natural world, we talk about how that can be life-changing in some ways. Perhaps you'll walk away with some different perspectives, or at least some different ideas on some places to perhaps visit. Again, the book is Wildlife by Atlas Obscura. Two last things before we dive in. First, don't forget our newsletter, zerototravel.com/newsletter. You can sign up over there. It's free if you want to keep in touch off the pod. And a bit of a surprise for you today in our road trip planning series, a segment you didn't expect to hear just yet, but it's coming. So get your pen and paper ready. That's all I'll say. All of that and much more happening in this show. Stick around on the back, and I'll also leave you with a quote to wrap things up. Thanks for listening. Please enjoy my conversation with Cara. Cheers. Cara Giaimo, welcome to the Zero to Travel podcast, my friend. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, this is exciting because I got the book. Thank you, by the way. Thanks to you and the team over there at Atlas Obscura for sending it along, because there's nothing better than a physical copy to kind of like flip through and prep for a conversation like this. This book's loaded. We have a lot of directions we could go today, I guess. But I have to start with Side Body, your band. Tell me about Side Body.
That's not where I thought you were going to go. Yeah. I'm in a little band here in Somerville. I live in Somerville, Massachusetts. I'm in a band with three of my friends. We all live pretty close together. We have a studio like right at the midpoint of where we all live, and we play shows. I play guitar. I love to play guitar, and a lot of the writing work I do is a little bit solitary. Obviously, I get to talk to a lot of great sources, but making things with other people is kind of just it's a different thing, and it's nice to balance them both.
I play in a band as well, and I play guitar.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I was thinking,
Nice.
And I work
Cool.
solitaire. So I feel like, yeah, we have a lot
so
in
you
common
get it.
with how the day goes. And sometimes, yeah, the guitar's like, it's like talking to you. It's like it's staring at me right now. Not right this is where I want to be right now. But sometimes if I'm doing something and I'm a little bit like off track, and maybe it's like tax related or something, and I'm like, the guitar is a much more appealing option right now.
Totally. Yeah. I know. It's just, I have the same way. Mine's in my study where I work, and it looks at me too. It's like, are you sure?
How does writing music inform your regular writing, or vice versa?
That's such a good question. I feel like rhythm is really important to me in both. Like if I'm writing a guitar part, I want it to be rhythmically interesting. If I'm writing a sentence, maybe I want it to do something rhythmically with, even the syllables or the emphases. I've always kind of just thought in that way.
How long have you been playing music?
I picked up the guitar when I was about 16. So almost 20 years I've been playing some way or another. But joining the band has really kind of like helped me get to a new level with it in terms of commitment and interest.
It's been one of the best things I've ever done. You always want to be the one in the room that everyone around you is like at another level. And that's always me with these guys. Like, I feel like they're like always taking me to the next level that I wouldn't be able to do just on my own. But I love the combination of sort of like the in-person creative collaboration thing, and then getting to go into like my little creative bubble like I have here. How is that for you? Like, is that like an intentional part of your lifestyle? And just,
it wasn't really something I did on purpose. It just kind of happened, but I do really like it. In general, I like being able to do so many different things in a day. Like this book was a huge project and it took up a lot of time, but it was sort of, counterbalanced by the ability to do some of these other things. And yeah, like, sitting at the computer and like doing really heavy research and learning everything there is to know about, a particular insect or whatever. And then like being really satisfied by that, but then coming out and getting to go and just jam kind of like without any particular goal in mind. It's just a completely different kind of energy. I don't know. It just helps me. Curiosity and having fun. I guess mostly curiosity really drives most of the things that I do in life. And so having two different arenas where that applies in different ways is really nice. What's your band called?
Laundry House. I can send you a link after.
Yeah, I'd love to hear
we
it.
started playing in like an old Norwegian community laundry house. So that where like the community
awesome.
would go and do their laundry. So that's how the whole name came up. It was just part of the origin story, I guess. So yeah, so that sort of free form creative idea versus you kind of like got goal oriented writing. And this book in particular, Wildlife, which obviously we're going to talk about today, from my research, seems like it took like 3 years to make this book. Obviously a lot of collaborations along the way. Do you do this freelance, or you're not full-time with Atlas Obscura, right? This was like a...
Not anymore. My first full-time writing job ever was with Atlas Obscura, and I wrote for their website for about 3 years. And then, I struck out on my own. I went freelance, and I really started to focus more on writing about other species, animals and plants and fungi and the people who know them well. And so the people at Atlas Obscura actually decided that they wanted their third book to be about the natural world. And they approached me and said, do you want to help us with this? And I thought it sounded like so much fun. So I was happy to get that email. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. And like you said, it took a very, very long time. I don't know how long. Books always take a long time. But it was definitely what I was focused on every day for for a while. And so having it out in the world is really satisfying and fun.
Yeah. How do you decide to make such a big commitment? Like, what's your thought process there where you're like, yes, you can get that email and be excited initially, but then also you can be like, what am I getting myself into?
Yeah.
Like, do I actually want to dedicate, like multiple years of my life to this project, or like a big portion of my time? And that's a huge consideration. I'm just wondering where your head was at, and like any advice you have to share, like with that process of things, because like we all have to kind of pick and choose the things we are going to put our time into. And sometimes that can be hard, especially when it's a bigger commitment.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think at the time, for better or for worse, I didn't quite understand what I was getting into. I said to myself, and
ignorance
I even
is
said to
bliss.
Yeah, exactly. I said, oh, okay, I think I can do this and freelance at the same time. And, it will be like half of my work or whatever. And I felt confident about that. But then as I went with it, I just got kind of like, I think the only word is really obsessed. Like I really just wanted to make it a certain way. I wanted it to be really fun to read. I wanted it to be really info dense. I wanted it to be including all of these different pieces. And in the end, I did work on it full time, and probably more than full time for a long time. But I don't know, it's really worthwhile to me. I think I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't enjoyed the project so much. So I ended up putting in the time and effort that matched my interest. And it just happened to be very high. So it all worked out. But I agree, you don't want to sign on to put all your time into something that doesn't feel that way, because then that's a different kind of thing. But this was really compelling to me.
Yeah. I mean, your enthusiasm for it definitely shines through. When I opened the book, I actually, because you don't know until you have a book in your hand, right? So you said information dense, and I was surprised at how much was here. It's like pictures and diagrams, and it's like a modern day documentation, but in a fun way, as Atlas Obscura is known to do. And you did a great job of making it engaging and entertaining. And
Thank you.
I'm sure that was part of the challenge too, because sometimes, like, this is no offense to like science writers, but sometimes like when you're reading something about the natural world, it can be a little dry at sometimes, like this is amazing thing. And like, how are you making this boring? But it's definitely not the case with what you have here. And then there's some surprising things along the way, which we'll talk about, that I was like, oh, this is really cool that you guys decided to include this. And I wanted to ask about some of the creative choices there, but we'll get to that. You see what I just did there? I guess that was a little accidental teaser. I'm sorry.
No, that's cool.
I was wondering, after spending, and we're going to get in some of the content, but after spending, all this time writing the book and diving in and exploring your curiosity around the natural world, did it change at all the way you live your daily life?
I think I've always found so much to appreciate about the natural world, and I've always tried to make it part of my life. I live in the city, but I spend a lot of time outside. If it's not winter, which it's starting to be, I'm outside most of the day. I work outside. Like, I just try to be out there as much as I can. I think like the process of writing this book and going through every single biome we could think of and going all around the world and talking to so many people, it just deepened everything for me. Actually, you know what? I was kind of worried that writing it would exhaust me in some way, because it did. Yeah, it just took a lot of time. And I was thinking about these things every single day. And I thought, okay, am I going to burn out on this topic? Am I going to not be interested in these quirky little critters anymore? Like, is this my last hurrah? But in the end, like, it just made everything feel more important. So I think it brought me closer in terms of, what I do every single day. I think it made me, it did actually make me more interested in travel. I'm not just saying that because that's what this podcast is about. It made me more wanting to see certain of these things for myself, or think about responsible ways to visit some of these places and really experience them. Most of what did that was, there are interviews in the book with people who live alongside different species, not just scientists, but other kinds of people with other kinds of jobs that bring them into contact with some of these cool animals and plants and things. And speaking with them or reading what contributing writers sort of spoke with them about made me want to be in particular places and experience that for myself. and speak to more people like that. So I'd say it made me want to build that into my life a little bit more, because the funny thing about writing a book like this is you're so focused on writing and trying to bring this very inspiring sort of travel adjacent experience to others that you don't go anywhere. You just sit at the computer all day and you work on it. Like, people read the book and they ask me, did you go to all these places? Did you see all these things? And I didn't go anywhere. I just tried to do it, as not as fast as I could, but I couldn't possibly have gone to all of these places and still turn the book in on time. So now that it's over, I'm sort of like, okay, where do I want to go? What do I want to see? And that's kind of also thrown into relief by the fact that a lot of these places are not going to be the same forever because of how we are changing the earth. And so I obviously think about that a lot too. And like what my role could be there, telling people about what we're doing. And even, I guess also, sorry, this is a very long answer. I'm not burned out on writing about fun little critters, but I am interested in how I can use my platform and the things I've learned to also, write about how, like, things we can actually do to keep the world from changing until it's unrecognizable to us and everybody else who lives here. I'm starting to feel a little bit more like maybe the next writing work I can do can be a little bit closer to that. I've always thought that, raising people's curiosity will help them care more. And I think that's true, but I think people also really want to know what they can do. Like, people don't always understand, and I don't always understand the role that individuals can play in the next however many years that are going to determine what the world looks like for a very long time. So I'm interested in looking into that a little bit further.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like not only impacted like your like a lot of perhaps part of your worldview or your everyday present, but also in the future and where you want to go with your work. Something about, when you dive a little deeper into the natural world and you understand, like, you start to see, I don't even know how to put into words. Like, I could just use an example from the book I was reading to my daughter last night. The caterpillar that, like, it doesn't shed like its old head. It grows a new head and like stacks heads on top of, and then the old heads aren't stacked on top of the new head. And it's like 7 heads high. And you're like, how is this like part of the same universe that we're, and just the endless creativity of the natural world. I think to me, that fuels my, like, when I go deep on something like that, like one thing, like the 7-headed caterpillar example, I was thinking it's just like, wow, like the world's so infinitely creative and adaptable, and we're a part of that. So that must mean, therefore, we are as well. And I don't know, I just find it so inspiring.
Totally, me too. And everything, I kept sort of, putting the book together. You read through a lot of examples of cool creatures and things like that caterpillar with all the heads. Like, I did sort of expect to be like, nothing can surprise me. I'm going to look through this batch of pitches, or I'm going to look through this like sheaf of scientific papers that I found, and everything's going to be something I've heard before. But it was never true. It was like there was always something like that caterpillar where it was like, I could have never dreamed this up, like, this is so, like you said, creative. It's very creative.
We'll get back to the interview in just a moment. I know you love earning travel rewards and cash back, and that's why you're going to love Rakuten. With Rakuten, you can earn cash back on everything you need to book your dream trip, hotels, flights, rental cars, experiences, and more, while still booking through your favorite travel sites. And don't worry, cash back can be earned on top of earning the credit card points and the hotel and airline loyalty points that matter most to you, depending on how you make your booking. Plus, with Rakuten, you can also earn cash back on groceries and other purchases like electronics, pet supplies, and more. And the best part, you can join today for free and start earning cash back on top of your travel rewards. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's Rakuten, Rakuten. Rakuten, the most rewarding way to shop.
This episode is brought to you by Fandango. People say fans are too distracted these days, but the truth is, when a great movie hits the screen, you show up, you stay glued, invested, part of the story. And without fans like you, there'd be no cinema magic, no shared moments. So head to Fandango.com to get tickets, stream, or rent or buy top movies and series. Fandango loves fans.
Now, back to the show. reading deep on different plants, animals, and we can talk about how you broke down the book here, but I know you have it like forests and rainforests, grasslands and tundras, mountains, deserts, shallows and deep, cities and islands. I thought cities was really cool to put in because it's just an opportunity for you to find and explore what's around you. For a lot of us that live in urban areas, it's just an opportunity to reaffirm the creativity of nature and sort of how it's humbling, I guess, in a lot of ways, reading about the natural world around us and understanding that we're a part of that and just how creative it is. You mentioned wanting to visit some of the places that you've written about now. I'm wondering what those are for you. Like, where are some of those places that really piqued your interest? You're the perfect person to answer this because you've gone so deep with this stuff. So I'm just wondering, what are those things that are going to be worth the time to go see for you?
I know that I want to go to the butterfly wintering grounds in Mexico where all the monarchs spend the winter. This is a pretty heavily covered part of the world. You can see a lot of amazing videos of this place, but basically all the monarch butterflies, they're different kinds of monarchs, and they migrate to different places. I think the densest migration ground where they all go and spend the winter together is in Mexico in this mountain forest, and you can go there and you can see them all together. And the writer who wrote about it for me for the book, Kestrel Keller, they described it as like a Dali-esque landscape of just like butterflies melting into each other because they're all like on top of each other to keep warm, and they're like sleeping. And it's just when I see a monarch in my yard, which is always a special experience in itself, it's all alone, and you sort of see it as this like creature who is like doing its all to get as far as it can with this like really funny way of transport, like these little wings that are kind of making it flutter all over the place. But so I imagine I like the idea of seeing them all together, when they've all gotten where they want to go and they're together, and they know they don't have to go anywhere for a while. Like, I want to see the monarch chilling.
Yeah.
I want to see all the monarchs chilling together. It seems like it's visually spectacular. There's a lot of cool culture surrounding it. The people who live there have made the monarchs a part of their culture, and I think vice versa. So that's one place I'd really like to go. I want to go to Poland and see the water filtration plants where they employ the mussels. This is one of the first entries in the cities chapter. They figured out a way there to hook up freshwater mussels like shellfish to to detect contamination in the water, because mussels are so sensitive to what's in the water, more than any, like a chemical test. You can test your water for stuff, but it's really hard to test it for everything. You would have to test it over and over and over again because our chemical tests are pretty specific. But a freshwater mussel is just very sensitive. Like, it's like if you smell something weird in the air, it can do that for water. So they put them all in this funny little contraption, and they have something attached to their shells. And if all the mussels, I think there's 8 on duty at once, if all the mussels close, they know that something's wrong with the water and they can shut it off, and then they can do all the tests to figure out what's wrong. And these mussels work for a certain amount of time, and then they're retired. They're just like thrown back into the water.
Wow.
But I want to see that. I think that's so cool. Like you said, we are creative, and we can find creative ways of sort of like working with different members of our ecosystem. And I like this example because, the mussels aren't harmed. They're just living somewhere else for a little bit. And then they go back home. And in the meantime, there's this way to keep the community safe without using a ton of effort and resources. And I wish we thought about things a little bit more like this in general. So I'd love to go and speak to the people who work with this system. Those are just 2 examples. I could keep you here for 4 days talking to you about places I'd like to go from the book.
Yeah. No, I love that example. It's like, when you think about harnessing nature for the good of humans, let's say, and like that's such a great example because we could think about putting lipstick on mice or something, to make sure there's that's kind of like, but this is just an example of using the natural ability of an animal to give us information. It just sounds so. Is there like a name for that kind of field? Like that should be a whole field, right? Like people trying to figure out
It totally should.
how to utilize nature to do, in like an organic way to kind of solve problems or make systems easier, like water testing, for example.
Yeah, and it's funny because like nature does, I mean, not to like overstate things, but the world and the way that energy moves around and the way that different resources move around naturally is actually like, because evolution works the way it does, there is like a lot of balance, there's like a lot of these systems, like for example, insects, like people don't like insects. They think they're annoying. They don't like mosquitoes, for example. And all of that makes a lot of sense. But we actually need there to be so many insects in order to, pollinate all of our plants and provide a food source for animals that are slowly larger and just sort of like participate in all of these natural cycles that we have. And so I think like an example like the mussels, it's a little silly and it's very specific, but it sort of shows the role that even these small creatures actually play naturally in the way that the world works that we can't forget about, because if we forget about it and we devalue them, we're going to be breaking all of the systems that keep us alive. And so I think that's another reason I like it. It's like not only an example of humans kind of stepping in and making a creative decision and doing something smart, it's like also, it really shows how much we rely on the way that happens naturally in so many different systems that we didn't build, but that we rely on.
You have one part where you just talk about fences. There's another part where you talk about roads, how they impact wildlife, plant life, things like that. Initially, you would think, you're just going to focus on the wildlife. So, like to me, that was a little bit like in a good way, like a surprising inclusion, like that you were talking about. Okay, the proliferation of fences and how they can impact migration, for example. Can you talk about some of the choices like that you made and why?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, the book is called Wildlife, and it is definitely like, there were some parameters around that. We didn't include domestic animals. We didn't include we kept that parameter, but, humans have had a huge impact on the wild world. And a lot of these creatures actually do encounter what we would call, human-made objects like a fence or a road quite regularly. So it didn't really make sense to leave that out of the story, and to pretend that humans haven't changed the world. We're all just sort of impacting each other. And so, it felt interesting and important to include some of this. I also just in my career have been lucky enough to meet a lot of people who know a lot of stuff. And I wanted to be able to talk to them for the book about the things that they think are important. And so, the person in the fence piece is a good friend. And she's impressed upon me over the years what a big issue this is. And so I figured it was a cool opportunity to help other people learn about it a little bit.
I was excited when I saw that, because it definitely is not something you think about every day, but something that you see everywhere. The cities chapter, just statistically speaking, most people listening will be somewhat near an urban area. Apologies if you're not, but just going off of statistics. So I'm just wondering, just from that chapter, you want to share one or two examples of some things that might be unexpected surprises that people might be able to find in their own backyards?
So one really cool one is peregrine falcons. I think I actually saw one of these the other day. I couldn't be completely sure. I live in Somerville, which is outside of Boston, or sort of part of Boston. And I think I saw one in Cambridge, which is the city next door. But peregrine falcons they're the fastest animal in the world. When they do they're called stooping dives, kind of just like whoosh out of the sky. They go faster than any other animal can. And they have learned, they used to be really prevalent, I think they used to live a lot near wild rivers and sort of European grasslands. That's the ecosystem that I sort of associate them with from the past. And there's been a lot of great writing about them there. But they've moved into cities quite successfully. You never really know. Different animals sort of are good at making it work in cities, and it can be a little bit unexpected. Peregrine falcons are really good at it. They have moved into cities really all over the world. They like to live high up because they have amazing vision and they like to swoop down on their prey from above. So they like to live high up and kind of like look out over their territory. And so they'll nest like really high up in cathedrals, or they'll nest like in skyscrapers, just any super tall building. It like plays the role of a cliff in where they once lived, and obviously some of them still do live outside of cities. But the fact that you can kind of just like go into a city and watch a falcon maybe like break a record like when it's hunting, like that's really cool. Like you wouldn't necessarily expect that you could do that. They're also changing their behavior. Somebody saw a peregrine falcon in the UK like hunting by a street light, which nobody really knew they could do. Like the idea that peregrines could use artificial light to change their lives, like, and that's so cool to think about too, because like adaptations like that are super fascinating. I think we tend to think about animals and plants and stuff as like a bit static, like, oh, they do this and that's just how it is. But they're like us, they use their minds and they figure out how to work with the environments they have. And so some falcon was like, hey, it's light enough for me to catch a pigeon tonight. Let's try it. And it kind of like invented this new behavior.
Yeah. Have you heard the term evolutionary mismatch?
No.
It's something I just became aware of recently. As applied to humans, it's this idea of, like the way, obviously we're bombarded with information, how much information we get through the internet and social media and everything like that is not like where our brains aren't designed for that. So it's like we haven't evolved enough to match up with the pace of the world, essentially. It must, of course, be the same for animals. And I wonder how that evolutionary mismatch impacts their brains or their behaviors. It's an interesting thought.
Totally. Yeah. And like not everybody can really make it work. Like not every animal is going to find a place in the city where they want to live. Not every animal is going to want to be so close to so much noise and hustle and bustle. But the ones that are really, they also give us an opportunity to think outside of ourselves. Like when you are walking down the street in a city and you see a peregrine falcon, or you see the other example I was going to give is starling murmurations. These are very birdy examples, I think, just because birds are a bit easier to see a lot of the time, especially in a city. Starlings, they're sort of little, very common iridescent birds. They are now found like across the world, a lot of the Northern Hemisphere, and then also places like Australia, New Zealand, Argentina, Venezuela, and they flock in these huge groups that look just so beautiful. Like you might have seen them. It often happens over rivers, sort of like at dusk. They'll all fly together, and it's a safety decision for them to be in a big flock, all moving together. It might nobody's quite sure exactly why they do it, but it might help them confuse potential prey who can't tell like which individual starling to pick out of the flock, or it might help them stay warm. But it's really, really cool if you get to see it, especially if you get to see a really big one. It's like, I don't know, it's like the Northern Lights almost, like this form of motion that seems really alien and weird, and you don't quite understand how it's happening. But they have this sort of hive mind ability to follow each other in ways that make these really cool shapes that are almost like Rorschach blocks or something like that. So that's another thing to look out for. That's actually quite easy. Like if you're not going to miss it if you're there when it's happening, and you can seek it out, like going to a bridge in the evening where starlings are. They might do this. My cat is here now. One of them. This is Poppy Seed.
Speaking of the natural world, hello, Poppy
exactly.
Seed. I think that, that's if there's one call to action here, I would say it's just like maybe we can all pay a little bit more attention as we walk out the door. I find that, at least for myself, it's living in a urban area. Sometimes it's just easy to you just get from point A to point B, and you're not really looking around at some of the things that are happening around you. And when you do, it is like an exercise in mindfulness in a way. You're like, wait a minute, let me stop. Like, what are those ants doing? This is insane. Why are they piled up on top of each other like that? Or, whatever. It's just, I don't know. It's always nice to come out of these episodes just kind of like people can think of one small thing to do and if you want to add to that, I'd love to hear.
You mentioned ants. Like watching insects is fascinating, and they're everywhere. And a lot of times if they show up in our house, we're like, no, I don't want you here. I don't care what you're doing. This is where I live. And, totally fair. I've put a lot of insects outside myself. But if you are if you do decide to take the time to look, it's so interesting. And there are so many things we don't know. The other day I was at the beach. I was doing a book event in Santa Cruz in California. And so I was driving there and I stopped at a beach and I walked up on like a jetty, like rocks that go out into the ocean. And I was looking for birds or fish or whatever. But what I actually found was like spiders. There were all these spiders that had woven webs on the jetty between the rocks. And I was like, what are they doing here? I just had so many questions. And I don't know, a lot of times when I observe things, like animals or plants doing something, I mostly have questions, but that's great. It's great to have questions. And then you can kind of try to figure it out over time. So yeah, watch the bugs, see what they're doing. Try not to be scared of them because they're not usually that scary. I think there is a little bit of a creepy crawly fear response that people can have, but if you get past that, they're so cool. And you can think to yourself like, okay, what does it seem like they're doing? Why are they doing that? What is complicating their journey today? And it's like a little story, that's playing out before you. And you can bring a little bit of yourself to it. And then you can also acknowledge the difference in experiences that you might have. And it's a nice little exercise.
Yeah. The spiders one's a great example of what are they doing here? This isn't their natural habitat, yet it is, I guess, Yeah,
I guess so. It's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's some nomads in this audience, people that are traveling long term, but when you are based somewhere for a while and you're going through the seasons, speaking of what you said in the beginning of the conversation, like the rhythm of words, the rhythm of music and writing, there's the rhythm to nature as well. And a specific example is this happened a couple months ago. After a certain period, there's a certain period of the year where there's all these spider webs out front of my house, like just all over, and you can see them reflected in the morning sun and everything. And it's just not normally that many, but for some reason that time of year, now I haven't solved that mystery. I don't know why it's like that, but I've noticed year after year that just kind of happens around the same time. Endlessly
That's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you noticed that. Right. Like the places we live and like the time that goes by, like we have, I don't know, I'm listening to myself, like kind of laughing, but like we have our calendars and our clocks and everything. But then like there are so many things happening around us that can tell us also what time it is and what like time of year it is. And like learning to clock into that stuff is cool and kind of freaky. Like where I live, the seasons are changing, like not from one to another, but like the character of the seasons feels like it's changing really fast because of the climate. So that's like also interesting to observe in a bit of a freaky way.
Why can a tree live for like 5,000 years? Like you have some of the oldest trees in the world, and there's a different list of them in the book. Then you have like an insect that only lives 24 hours. It's like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah, it's really nuts.
One of the places in the book that I've heard about, and you mentioned the YouTubers in here because there's some sensational, I feel like, videos around this, but the Chernobyl exclusion zone, of course, the meltdown in Chernobyl, which polluted the area with radiation. And so it was closed and off limits. And now you can, I guess, I don't know how it works. I think you can travel there and see parts of it, or maybe all of it. You probably know better than I do. I know there's some like YouTubers going there and showing us stuff, but from the wildlife perspective, this has done some interesting things. And I wanted to hear a little bit more about that and what your thought was around including that.
Totally. So that's a place that I find really interesting as well. I think you can take tours there. I think when I was writing the book, it was like lockdown was still happening. And so the options for any sort of thing like that were limited, but I believe that you can take a guided tour into different parts of the zone. And then the YouTubers that go in, I don't know if they're supposed to be there or not, but their videos are definitely really interesting. It's an interesting place because, like you said, there was this horrible accident, and a lot of radiation exposure all over this particular part of the world. And people left. Obviously, they couldn't live there. And then, a lot of animals sort of moved in. It sort of rewilded. Like there's this thing called rewilding. It just basically means like all the people leave and we let it go back to how it wants to be without us. And so the Chernobyl exclusion zone has rewilded, and people are really curious about the effect that the radiation has on the animals that live there, but also on the fact that the lack of human presence has made it in some ways much easier for them to be there. So it's kind of like there are pros and cons for them. Like obviously they probably don't know about the radiation, but it might be affecting them anyway. But they do know that this is a quiet place without human disturbance that they can go. And so there are a lot of opportunities to see wildlife there if you take one of these tours. And then people are also studying, the radiation effects on the different species. And it's hard to say, like some of the some of the observations seem to suggest that certain species are unaffected while others might be very affected. So it's a bit scattershot, but yeah, it's a super interesting place. I mean, again, like our presence has changed the world so much. Like as a species, our ability to invent things and change landscapes and like just sort of leave our mark everywhere we go in many places we don't go has transformed the entire planet. And I didn't want to shy away from that in this book because it's true. And it's also interesting.
And it is interesting to think that it takes some like a nuclear plant meltdown in order to create the space for a proper rewilding to occur,
Sometimes, yeah.
You could say, well, clearly they don't know about the radiation or like that this is impacted there. But then, animals, there are animals that they have certain behaviors when there's an earthquake that's going to come and hasn't hit yet, or like it's about to rain, they know. So who knows what they know?
No, you're right. I was thinking about that as I was saying that. I was like, actually, I can't say definitively that they don't.
Sure. No, you said that. Yeah. That's why I appreciated that. Cause it's like somebody might be thinking, but we don't know. We'll get back to the interview in just a moment.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Now, back to the show. You also there was the story of the snake charmer, which was a traditional sort of one of those generational jobs, I guess you could call it, like the art and the craft of snake charming was passed down in this guy's family. You want to talk a little bit about that part of the book? Because I thought that was also like an interesting, bringing in sort of like a local perspective on the human-animal connection that, maybe tourists have seen in a certain way. It seems like the gentleman that was featured in your book was more of part of a traditional lineup that practiced in a traditional way as opposed to some of the modern day. Yeah, you want to just share a little bit about that?
Oh, totally. Yeah, it was so important to me to include people in the book who, had different kinds of relationships with the different species we feature, and also like sometimes, like in this case, very close relationships that have been occurring over generations. And I think that kind of knowledge is so interesting, and it's not something we're always exposed to, even reading about science, like in my job, ordinarily I talk to so many scientists and researchers, and they do have so much knowledge to share. But they, it's a particular kind of knowledge often gathered in one of a particular set of ways. And, those people are also people, and sometimes the most interesting conversations I have with them are when we move away from like the bounded research work that they do and into the observations they've made outside of that, or, how they feel about stuff. I guess that's kind of an aside, but yeah, getting to talk to all different people with all different areas of expertise and all different types of experience from all around the world. Like that was so cool. That was the best part of working on this. So this guy, I wish I knew better how to pronounce his name, but my best shot at it is Jabal Jogi, and he lives outside of Pakistan, and he is a part of the Jogi tribe, which is a nomadic group of people who use music and like tradition to charm venomous snakes. The person who interviewed him is named Aisha Imtiaz. She's a freelance writer and she's really great. She went out to see him and talk to him. Actually, I think she didn't go, but she managed to like FaceTime him and talk to him about his work with snakes. And it's really cool. Like this group of people has just been working with these snakes for generations. The snakes live with them. They don't think of them as pets, and they don't think of them as tools or resources. They think of them as, beings who they live alongside and who they work with. And, he said some stuff that like, sort of on its surface, like, I don't really know that I would say is like fact checking was interesting because, he said some stuff that I was kind of like, I've never heard this before. Like, I can't imagine that this is like true in the sense that I think of things as true, but it's true to him. And he has so much more experience than me with this that I wanted to like, let him, obviously talk about it. Like, who am I to say that this does not happen when I have never seen the snake and I'm not part of his group, So I don't know. I wanted to give space to people to like to share their experiences. Because that's like, I don't know. It's part of what's really cool about getting to make a book like this. Is you can like obviously a lot of it is in a voice that I have spent a long time developing and that I think is effective for like keeping people interested and stuff. But then you get to have these parts where other people get to talk and you can learn new things from them. And yeah. But I mean, just thinking about Jabal Jogi and his community, like out there, knowing these snakes so well and having these relationships and sometimes performing and they perform at like festivals and things like that. Sharing that with others is cool. That's another place I would love to travel and see more of.
Yeah. When you were talking about the difficulty with fact checking, were you referring to kind of his, how he was explaining his ability to sort of like communicate with the snake and sort of make like a pact with it and be able to know that the snake would communicate to him when that was sort of done?
Yeah, exactly. Things like that. Just like different things he talked about. It's just so far out of the realm of my own experience and the realm of the fact checker's experience. And so it was just cool to see it and be like, yeah, I mean, like, like, I don't know, like how do you really like, it's something I'm interested in. Like, how do you ask more about that? But yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing that I meant. How can you fact check that this person has a pact with the snake? You kind of can't. And so you just have to either...
Good luck with that one, Chat GPT.
Exactly. The world is a really cool place.
It's a mysterious place. Well, I mean, like, you think about going back to music, sometimes you might come up with a riff or something and you just don't even know where it came from. We experience these kind of like small miracles every day as humans. So who's to say, I don't know, maybe that's like the mystical, my interest in mysticism taking over here, but
no, but there are so many different ways of understanding things and experiencing things and creating things. And like, as a science journalist, I do feel like beholden to the truth, right? Like, I don't ever want to put something in a book or in an article that is not true or that is misleading or like, like I feel that really strongly. It's part of my job. But then, you get into these things that some people would say, that's hogwash, that's impossible. But other people would not say that. And I think you just kind of have to, like, I trust this person to tell me about his experiences. And so I was glad to have the ability to include them. And I think it can be really mind-opening to consider that this, like, is a way to relate to a snake,
Yeah. I mean, we're both from the US originally, so like we can only speak from the Western mindset, and that's important to remember, right? Like everything is filtered through that mindset. And so to include different perspectives and just like include them in an honest way, I think is really cool. I mean, as a science writer, it's, you know, how much that we don't know about the natural world. So it's just, I don't know, it's amazing to me to think like we can put a person on the moon. So surely we know everything about everything, but then we don't even know like simple things about how trees communicate or something, you know?
Totally.
It's just like, the more you know.
Yeah. And I know you mean, we know the things that we want to know to a certain extent. Like we know the things that we've put, like the moon mission, like took so much resources and so many people had to care so deeply in order for that to happen. And I'm kind of waiting like for that moment to occur in the contemporary world with questions like how trees communicate. I don't know, going back to something we were talking about earlier, I think we're at a moment where like we really need to decide what the planet is going to look like. And we have a lot of impact on that. And I feel like we're sort of thinking within the systems that we've already set up, you know, like, can we bring down our emissions, which is obviously very important? Can we change some of these like human-made resource cycles that we've gotten ourselves into with things like making fertilizer and creating, you know, material goods? But I think like, it seems to me like a really good time to learn a little bit more about how everybody else is doing it, like how these trees are talking, how they're cycling resources, like again, with the mussels, like if we could learn a little bit more about all the different ways there are to live on Earth, I think we might have a little bit of a better idea of how to do it ourselves without creating so much destruction and imbalance. So I'm hoping that people will maybe turn their attention to that a little bit more soon, preferably very soon.
I'm hitting the applause button sound effect.
Okay. Thank you.
No, seriously. I mean, it's like that idea of what you just said, you know, getting more scientists to question the existing systems instead of just kind of like blindly working within them, maybe taking a step back out and be like, is this even like the framework we should be using to operate within? Like, what would it look like if, you know, these types of questions are going to open up things like the mussel example that you used.
I was speaking to somebody who said that their mentor said to them, like, anything that we can build, like some microbe or insect or like what, like knows how to do it better, like in terms of chemical compounds, even like because evolution has like led to so many different ways of making it work. And that the like each of these creatures and species has so many different cool skills and talents that we can learn from if we pay a little bit closer attention. And like maybe there's a world in which we can keep like doing all the things that we like to do without creating so many difficult byproducts from that, you know. Like I don't know, I'd like to think it's possible, and one way to get there might be to study how others do it.
If you find like a tree or plant or something that I can like pull a leaf from and it'll make me a better guitar player, like I can rub my hands on it and keep it in my office, let me know if that exists, because
Totally.
that would be pretty sweet.
Did you read the interview with the zoo musicologist yet?
No.
You might be interested in that. It's in the forest chapter. Ella Morton, who actually wrote the first Atlas Obscura book, she was kind enough to contribute a few pieces to this book, and one of them was about flute lyrebirds, which live in Australia, and can sing anything. Like they imitate sounds, and they can imitate other birds, and they can imitate human, like ones in zoos will imitate like jackhammers and car alarms and stuff like really well.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And so she spoke to a zoo musicologist named Hollis Taylor, also in Australia, who is a musician who studies like the musical aspects of animal sounds and uses them in her work as well. She's a violinist. She says that like playing birdsong on her violin makes her understand it better and also makes her a better violinist. So that might be your magic leaf. Start playing some bird songs on your guitar.
I'm going to read that right after this. That sounds fascinating. My son would probably want to teach them like the riff from the final countdown. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. He loves that song. They could probably figure that. That's probably easier to do than a jackhammer. I was also thinking about making a Police Academy reference, but most people won't get that. There's that guy in Police Academy that can make all the noises of any, whatever. See, that's why I didn't go there.
Sorry.
Even though I just did. Why did I do that? Okay, it's time for another edition of our road trip planning mini-series, and I've got a surprise for you today because I couldn't wait. We're going to plan your trip today. It's how to plan your next road trip today in 3 easy steps. So get your pen and paper ready, get pumped up, because you are planning yourself a road trip in the near future. And we're all about taking action, getting out and traveling. So that's why we're doing this today. We're going to take all the tips and advice and ideas from the previous segments and put them to use by helping you plan an epic road trip for the coming year today. So you've heard examples of some epic trips already during this series. You've gotten some counterintuitive hacks. You've gotten advice for crafting an epic itinerary. You've gotten plenty of other goodies in between. And I want you to keep those in mind as we roll through these 3 easy steps. And by the end of this segment, in fact, you're going to have an incredible road trip on the books. So before we dive in, I want to say a quick and huge thank you to Defender for supporting this special road trip planning mini-series. Defender is truly the ultimate road trip vehicle for many reasons, including its durability, its cargo capacity, and the fact that it's tested to the extreme. Defender's family of vehicles include the 90, 110, or the 130, which has a whopping 8 seats. Defender is an icon of adventure with a tough, rigid body design, and it's been reimagined for a new generation of explorers that is you. Design your Defender at LandRoverUSA.com. Now, when you think about a road trip, what comes to mind? For me, it's one single word: freedom. It's possibility. Also, it's the buzz that kind of comes with that anticipation of what we might find around any given corner, what's going to happen any day we wake up. It's the adventure. And in order to plan a trip, I think the best place to start for any trip, not just a road trip, get a rock solid foundation by identifying your quote unquote why, your intention. What do you want out of this trip that you're planning today? And you are planning a trip today. I'm watching you. I know you're doing this, okay? Do you want your road trip to be a transformative type of experience? Maybe you want to have a chance to, travel and just see some people you love and kind of build it out like that. Maybe it's you taking a shot to do something you've dreamed about for years, and now is finally the time to just go for it. Maybe it's completing a big quest. You've heard a lot of people on this show talk about their quests, like, visiting every national park in the Western USA or something like that. Maybe it's just to go to one place. Maybe that's just even a couple hours from your home. I don't want you to think that this is something that has to be, a multi-month thing. Like, you got to just plan something based around your lifestyle, based around what you have time for. And maybe that's just going to a place nearby that you've always wanted to check out, but have been putting off. The one that comes to mind for me, I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and I still have never been to see Gettysburg, the historical site. And I've really got to do that. So I'm not living there anymore, but that would be an example of if I was living in the Philadelphia area, maybe I would just finally book that trip to Gettysburg to check it out. So the question is, what do you really want out of this trip? Maybe it's just an opportunity to spend some time for yourself. When I was driving from Colorado to Pennsylvania, I was going to move to Norway. My wife was pregnant with our first child, and I was going to take this road trip across the states. And for me, I kind of knew going into it. It was, I don't know if I was living in my own coming of age story, but, in a way, for me, it was really just a chance to spend some time alone, crossing my home country one last time before moving abroad. I got to hit up some diners, which is something I love to do for breakfast. I got to go to my homecoming at my old university, so I knew I was going to stop and see some friends. And I got the mental space during the long drives to contemplate, what it means to become a father and, how I might want my life to look. And really an opportunity to, have some fun along the way, see some friends, and perhaps, maybe even be a bit transformed. I didn't put too much pressure on that, but I knew, I was closing a chapter on life, and a road trip really was the perfect way to kind of give me the space to process that and to, connect with my home country one last time, and then to just kind of think about closing that chapter of my life in Colorado and opening up this new chapter and what that all meant. I mean, getting that physical space on those long drives, it's such a wonderful gift. So, that was a deeper journey for me in some ways, but, other trips I've done, like going to Moab, Utah, when I was living in Colorado, we'd go with a couple friends, and we just really had the simple intention of just getting outside, doing some hiking, biking, and rafting, just having some good food and good fun. So what about you? What is your why for planning this particular trip you are planning today? Before we get into these 3 easy steps, I think it's smart to just go ahead, pause this if you can, and just write it down, or, if you're driving or something, just take a moment and get it locked in your head. Don't overthink it. I think your best why is usually the first one that comes to mind. Okay, now let's get into these 3 easy steps. They are fairly easy too, but they will make it real. So the number 1 is just to commit. That means picking a date and a time frame to lock it in and pick a general route. It doesn't have to be perfect. So right now, I want you to just write down the day and roughly the day you're going to leave, roughly how many days you're going to be gone, and pick your general itinerary. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like, where are you going to go? Is it a particular state? Is it like a loop? Are you spending a weekend somewhere? Just lock something in. Don't overthink it. You're going to have a great time no matter what. Don't be like, oh, well, I don't know if maybe I should do this and that. Just pick something and roll with it, okay? Number 2, I want you to share. That means call or text any friends or family you may want to join you. If you're going solo, maybe you want to just call or text somebody anyway, just to let them know, give you a little bit of accountability. Just be like, hey, I really want to do this trip. I'm committing to it. I just want to let you know so you hold me accountable. Something as simple as that. Having accountability and telling people really makes something more real. You do get that sort of extra push. And then get in touch with someone you might want to visit on the trip. If you're going to be visiting somebody, just be like, hey, I want to come visit. This is, when I'm thinking about, what do you think? I'd love to see you. Anyway, the point is to tell someone. Now, I realize you might need to reverse step 1 and 2 of this if your trip revolves around visiting people, because you're going to want to make sure that they're available first. And so in that case, if you're going to build your trip around, which is another great way to build a trip, just like, hey, I'm just going to hopscotch around and stay with family and friends and just visit them. Just, get their availability, and then that will help you lock in the dates. Okay. Lastly, make it concrete. And the way you can do this is by booking a place to stay for one of your nights. I remember when we locked in our honeymoon, my wife and I, we did a road trip in Colorado for our honeymoon, and we went to a bluegrass festival, and it was awesome. And we had time from when we were going to leave Boulder to when we were going to get to Telluride for this bluegrass festival. And so how we kind of locked it in was we booked a place in Ridgway, Colorado for 4 nights, and we knew that was going to be near a hot spring. That was something we wanted to do. We knew it was going to be near a bunch of hiking and all sorts of outdoor activities. And it was just a way to lock that part of the trip in and just be like, all right, here's what we're doing. We're doing this. We wanted to, again, be near that hot spring. So you could always pick something like that and then just, book something near something you really want to do. Anyway, just make it concrete by getting a travel reservation and get some momentum. And just remember, if you check the cancellation policies on any place you book, if you're smart about it and you're still unsure, then you can book something that is cancelable, right? But it's just the act of going on and just today. And I know you can't maybe do this right now because perhaps you're tied up. If you're listening to this at home and you can, go for it. But by the end of the day, or then within the next 24 hours, book something. I guarantee you'll start to feel like, okay, this is actually happening. This is real. And a bonus tip for you, just celebrate, get pumped. I mean, if that means buying a book about the place you're going, or just getting a map, or just having a coffee or your favorite beverage and just celebrate and just be like, yeah, rock on, I'm doing this. Awesome. So I'm applauding you. Well done. You just locked in a trip, and we're all about adding more travel into your life here on the show. And so that's what we did today. Okay, there you go. Be on the lookout. There's going to be one more segment coming your way, a bit of a bonus segment, just to give you a little more support for the trip, the adventure you have coming up. Speaking of adventure, I want to share one last thank you to the icon of adventure, Defender, for helping me help you plan this iconic adventure. Defender has been reimagined through thoroughly modern design, but one thing that hasn't changed is Defender's legendary capability off-road and on. It's the ultimate vehicle for road tripping. You can explore the Defender 90, the 110, and the 130, which has 8 seats over at LandRoverUSA.com. Thanks for listening. And please, if you want some accountability, you can always send me an email. Let me know what you planned, where you're going. Thanks for listening. A couple more questions. I want to respect your time because I know you're doing a lot of these. What is your greatest hope for the book? I'm getting a sense of some of the sort of deeply personal, meaningful things to you around sort of nature and climate. Was that one of the things that kept you going on the project and kind of your why, not just the curiosity, but also as a foundational sort of great hope for the book? What is it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, it definitely helped keep me going to think of, obviously, people reading it. And it also came to mind as I was working on it. A lot of the research sort of led me to, you're looking into a particular creature and you wonder, okay, how is it doing? And a lot of the times the answer was its circumstances have changed a lot and will continue to change a lot because of, it's usually a habitat loss from human development and resource extraction and / climate change, which is, changing the conditions of a lot of places where these creatures have lived for a very, very long time. And so as I was writing, I was thinking about all the people over the years who have taken on this task of making species compilations. They've been going on for a while. They were a huge thing in Victorian England, when colonialism was big and people were doing a lot of exploring and bringing examples back of things that they had seen and making big compendiums to teach people about the different species that exist all around the world. And then, there are obviously taxonomy collections, and there are I don't know, even I was thinking a lot about when I was little, I loved zoo books. Do you remember those little leaflets where it was you could get one, it was about lions, and then you could get one that was about giraffes, and it just was filled with stats and facts. I don't know. I had all these things in mind when I felt I was kind of part of a tradition, sort of people who like to compile species. And I was thinking okay, in this moment, part of that is actually reckoning with loss and fear and grief. And, I didn't want to make the book too heavy, but I did feel I'm writing about some of these creatures that might not exist in 10, 15, 20, 50 years. I want to do that justice, and I want to give people the opportunity to learn about them, and hopefully care about them. You were asking about the why. Yeah, it was kind of both of those things. I personally think that these other species are so fascinating to learn about and to consider sort of when living my daily life or thinking about how I want the world to be. I wanted to bring that across to people. I wanted people to have fun reading it. I don't know, you mentioned this. You were just saying it's dense, it's really filled with stuff, and it has some things in it that you might not expect. I do think it is a gift book. It's a very beautiful object that you could give to someone or give to yourself. And then I'm hoping that people will do that and then be surprised, because maybe they think it's going to be one way, or they have certain expectations around a book like this and what it is. And then I hope that they find that there's more in it than they expected, more different kinds of things, or just something that resonates with them. Those are my hopes.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think it's beautiful, and very much feels like you are part of that tradition you mentioned of compiling species, but also like in a way that, like you said, is entertaining, and like you've really balanced all of the intentions you just laid out of like sort of your why and your hopes. It does feel like you fully accomplished all of that.
Well, thanks a lot.
With this. So I just want to give you congratulations, because it's no small feat to like take all those values and infuse them into a book of this size. So, and this scope. So congrats.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to, I've mentioned them a few times, but the various contributing writers who participated in this project. I worked with like probably over 100 writers from literally everywhere. We had people on all 7 continents, including Antarctica, contributing to this book. And I learned so much from them, and it was so much fun to work with all of them. And I think that also helps give the book a feeling of surprise and enjoyment, is that there's just so many people who put their care into it. So I didn't want to not mention that.
Yeah. How's the book tour going?
It's been fun. It's been awesome. It's so cool to meet people in different places who, I mentioned this before, but a lot of this work is a little bit solitary, and I don't mind that. But then coming out from that into, a bookstore filled with people who really care about the same things as me, or like, getting questions from people who are really engaged and interested and have their own perspectives to share feels really good.
Amazing. Do you want to leave us with like, is there like a favorite quote you're living by now, or anything that you've got?
Honestly, like the thing that comes to mind, the seasons are changing here in Boston really quickly. Like actually the season's changing from fall to winter. It's getting cold. It's making me mad. I don't always really love the cold weather, although, I respect it. So every single day I've been trying to get outside first thing, and just sort of like accept what's going on out there and look around a little bit, see how the plants are changing, like you said before, see how the birds and bugs are doing, feel the quality of the sunlight, things like that as a morning routine. And it's working really well. It's helping set the tone for the whole day. So it's not a quote, but it's sort of like it's a little ritual I'm doing right now, and I recommend it.
You're practicing friluftsliv. That's the Norwegian concept of the fresh air life, getting outside no matter what the weather, So there you go. Embrace the friluftsliv.
Yeah, even just like, yes, I'm embracing it. Will you say it one more time?
Friluftsliv.
Friluftsliv.
Yeah.
Cool. That's what I'm going to say to myself.
You can look it up. I'll send you links. Speaking of links, we'll put them all into the show notes. Is the best place for the book just the Atlas Obscura homepage? Is that where you're sending people? Where do you want people to go to check out your work?
So the book is most places you can find books will probably have it. It's in local bookstores. It's on Amazon. It's on Bookshop. You can find it through the Atlas Obscura website and use that to find it somewhere else that you might want to get it. My work is all over the place. I'm going back to freelancing, so I'll be popping up in various publications. And the tour is wrapping up, but I do have a few more events. I'm going to be in Savannah, Georgia as part of the Savannah Book Festival next February. So if you happen to be near there, come say hi.
Nice. We'll link up to it all, and again, the book Wildlife, An Explorer's Guide to the World's Living Wonders. It's beautiful. Well done. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jason. This was awesome. Such a good conversation.
Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you very much to Cara Giaimo and the folks over at Atlas Obscura for setting this up and sending me this lovely book, Wildlife. It's really inspiring, as you heard me discuss in the interview. I just love deep diving on what nature has to offer, and it's unlimited and infinite creativity. Gets me so pumped up. Anyway, thanks for listening. I am going to leave you with a quote now. First, a quick reminder. We have a newsletter. Sign up over at zerototravel.com/newsletter for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's free. Number 2, you're going to get awesome stuff and connect further with the community. I guess that was 3 reasons. So there you go. All right, I'm going to leave you with this quote. I saw it today, and I thought it was a good one that ties this show together. It's from Amy Cuddy, who said, "The way you tell your story to yourself matters." There you go. Now, lastly, as promised, we'll play you out with one of Cara's tunes from her band Sidebody. You can find them wherever you get music. This one from the album Full-Time Job, and it is called Pie in the Sky. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Peace and love to you and yours. Cheers.
Hey Michelle, why you running so fast? You had these memories and I told you they wouldn't last. Hey Michelle, can we leave it behind? Oh, take the distance and maybe call it a sign. Hey Michelle, don't tell my secret to anyone but me
And you.
Don't waste your time. There's nothing left here. The trees have shed the leaves and the grass is just dirt. How can we ever make it work? Hey Michelle, why you running away? I got these secrets that I thought I told you yesterday. Hey Michelle, that's in the past, you know. Hey